Welcome back, Knuckleheads. I'm Lupine Fiasco. This is Daily Fab Gameplay, and today, in lieu of a gameplay review, I want to give you a deck tech of the Kayo list that I've been playing over the last few weeks on the channel, and that I've been bringing to events. If you've been watching, you know that I've been on Kayo since release. This deck has gone through a few iterations, has taken a lot of inspiration from Pro Tour LA lists. My teammate Austin and I have refined this list over a period of a few weeks. We feel very confident in it. I took it to an 11th place finish at a Pro Quest that Austin finished first in. He recently bubbled out of top 8 in Battle Hardened San Francisco with this list. So there is some natural variance based on the Brew playstyle. You need to get a little lucky with Gem, as Warrior is still a pretty bad matchup, as I talked about last week. But for the most part, this deck is consistent, and this deck is powerful. So you've watched me play it. I want to talk about card choices, and particularly cards that I am not playing. There is some debate in the Kayo community about cards like Savage Feast or Savage Beatdown. So I will touch on what isn't in this deck and why. And I can talk briefly about potential changes with the release of Armory deck Kayo in a couple weeks. If you want to watch this deck in action, you can see a backlog of daily gameplay videos. If you'd like to check this list out or try it on Talishar, there is a Fabry deck link in the video description below. While you're down there, if you haven't already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription, as it is the best free way to support me and to make sure that you see videos featuring this deck in your video feed 5 days a week. The best paid way to support me is through Patreon. A Patreon link is also in the video description. And while daily Fab Gameplay will be free 5 days a week, I truly appreciate everyone who patronizes me. Let's get into the deck tech itself. This is Lupine Fiasco's Heavy Kayo. It's a public list, so if you are just scrolling on Fabry, you can find this. 80 cards, you can see our ratios up here. This is the default 60 and default equipment loadout. This will all change matchup to matchup, but for the most part, these are the ratios that we're keeping. 27 reds, 12 yellows, and I am on 21 blues in every matchup. As far as the equipment loadout, if you've been playing Kayo, this is all pretty standard. There's some debate about Fiendal Spring Tunic versus Heart and Cross Trap. You'll notice that Heart and Cross Trap is not in this list, which I'll talk about, but outside of Wizard or Runeblade, you're going to run this exact equipment loadout. We only have one weapon in Mandible Claw. Kayo only has one equipment slot. There are some other options, I guess, but I don't think you'll find a competitive Kayo list that isn't playing Mandible Claw. Similarly, Apex Bonebreaker is our only option if you aren't playing against an arcane hero. It is just really head and shoulders above any other option. Gambler's Gloves is in this list for Prism. I'll talk about that in just a bit. But in 90% of your matchups, you'll be on Bonebreaker, Tunic, Scab Skins, and of course, standout equipment piece, Scowling Flesh Bag. This is possibly the best defensive piece of equipment in Flesh and Blood. It blocks 2. It has defensive Intimidate, which can really screw up your opponent's plans. Either you banish a very crucial card from their hand, something like Katsu's combo piece, for instance, you can banish, or Kasai or Dorinthia's only way to give their first sword or hatchet go again. But outside of that, it is great at keeping tempo. If you can anticipate what your opponent's turn looks like based on what they've played and what they have left in hand, you might just hit one of 2 cards they needed to pitch for a follow-up attack. Fleshbag isn't necessarily trying to totally tank your opponent's turn, hit the crazy 25% chance to win the game. Sometimes you are just using it to keep tempo. Sometimes you're using it to make sure that your opponent doesn't have a massive turn ahead of your 5-card Blood Rush Bellow. It's very versatile. It's very strong. The best way that you can increase your win percent as Kayo is working on your fleshbag timing. It's a big lesson I've had to learn, and I feel like I am getting better at it. But even then, it's an incredibly nuanced card and can be very difficult to time correctly. But that all being said, because it is so strong, if we aren't playing against Wizard, we're playing Scowling Fleshbag. There really is not space in the deck for a Crown of Providence, and even Crown against Guardian. Yeah, it saves you from a CNC, but Fleshbag as a way to intimidate away their pummel is usually more impactful over the course of the game. Scrolling down to look at our 60, we can talk first about the reds in the deck. Again, 2 months into heavy hitters, I believe Kayo is more or less solved. If you look at the top performing Pro Tour LA lists, you'll find that really 60 out of 80 cards of every Kayo deck are exactly the same. Every Kayo deck is going to be playing Bare Fangs. Every Kayo deck is going to be playing Pulping, Swing Big, a number of Wild Rides. There is some variation on number of runners or pack hunts. Some players are higher on Enlightened Strike than others. Peter Ward notably did not play Command and Conquer in his PT Top 8 list. That said, he has since come out and said he didn't own a playset of Command and Conquer. I have to imagine that if he did own CNC, he would be playing it. Cast Bones is a card that has gotten a lot of heat over the last few weeks. When Heavy Hitters released, Cast Bones was insane, and I think everyone realized immediately how strong it was. And it's only in the months following the release of Heavy Hitters that people have started to come down on Cast Bones. As, for one thing, it is a miss in KO. Your draw discard effects all care about you discarding a card with 6 or more power, and Cast Bones is a non-attack action. Outside of that, it can often be too slow for aggro races, like against Katsu or even against other brutes. You may find that the time and situation to set up Cast Bones will hinder your ability to put damage or disruption together. If you have a turn that looks like Enlightened Strike for 5, go again, play Cast Bones, arsenal the 4th card in your hand. If you do that to a Katsu, all the Katsu saw was, I take 5 damage that has no disruption and crack back with a 5-card hand. Katsu loves that. Katsu wants nothing more than for you to spend your turn setting up 6 mites that you won't get to use because you're dead. I personally like Cast Bones. I'm playing it in far fewer matchups than I started with. When I started playing KO, Cast Bones was in every matchup because it's a busted card. But as I have since learned, well, it maybe isn't as busted as it seemed. I have been boarding the card out more and more often, but I still think it's really strong against Guardian and Warrior in particular, and even against some of the slower aggro decks, I think we do have time to play Cast Bones, but I am experimenting with cutting it from the Brute Mirror and really just having it as a way to get damage over the top of Warrior and Guardian. As far as our KO plan, what we really want to be doing is playing out 4-card hands that have 2 blues and 2 reds, one of which has go again. So the ideal KO hand would have 2 for-6 blues, one of which is a Pulping or a Wild Ride that more or less have base go again if our deck behaves the way it's supposed to. We have a second 2 for 6 or a 2 for 8 like Swing Big, and we have 2 blues for a total of 6 resources. And what that's going to let us do is open a turn with a Wild Ride, follow up with a Mandible Claw for 3 with Go Again, and end the turn with a 2 for 6 or a 2 for 8 in the case of Swing Big or Bare Fangs. So that really informs the reds that we're playing with here. Outside of Cast Bones or Enlightened Strike, Every red in our deck costs 2 and attacks for anywhere between 6 to 8. And which reds you use are kind of based on the opposing hero and what you value most in a deck, in an attack. Pack Hunt for me is the card that I've come up on the most recently. Against aggro heroes, this card has no text until it is dealing lethal damage. Kayo doesn't care about Intimidate. Kayo, for the most part, doesn't care about Intimidate. But against certain decks like Guardian or Warrior that do care about blocking and also care about which cards they're blocking with, Pack Hunt is a really great way to push some damage or to make blocking awkward for your opponent. Runner is another card that I have really come up on recently. When I started playing Kayo, I really didn't like these situational cards that, based on the board state, may not have text on offense. If you don't have agility or a quicken, then Runner just is a 2 for 6 with no text on it. But I've since come up on the card because it is a brute attack, which really helps with your Blood Rush Bellow turns. And when the condition is met, it's really strong. Runner that refreshes your agility token is really good at just pushing damage and also letting you push damage on your next turn. Kayo with agility is a lot better than Kayo without agility. And Runner combined with our Agile Windups or Clash of Agility or even Cast Bones is a really great way to make sure that you are continuing to get the most out of your turns, and that when you take tempo, you are able to convert a 4 or 5 card hand to offensive value, and that you aren't punished for having cards without Go Again and not being able to block with them. Enlightened Strike, I think, is the only red besides Cast Bones that is a bit contentious. Only because it is a generic attack action. It doesn't say brute, and we have to be a little skeptical of any attack that is not a brute attack because it doesn't work with Blood Rush Bellow. Kayo gets the most value out of his Blood Rush Bellow when he attacks with 3 brute attacks in the same Blood Rush turn. Enlightened Strike can be very clunky, as it requires you to have a second card in your hand. So let's say you attacked with a Wild Ride and then a Pulping, and you have your 2 floating resources, but the card you have left in your hand is an Enlightened Strike. Or let's say you attack with a Wild Ride Mandible Claw, and you have 2 resources and an E-Strike in hand. You can't actually play the E-Strike because you don't have a card to bottom to it. So you may end up just putting the E-Strike in your arsenal. That can be fine going into your next turn, but if you really just needed to deal more damage to your opponent, to threaten lethal and strip cards out of their hand, E-Strike can be a big tempo loss. But I think 3 of the card is playable in every matchup because it has Go Again when you need it to have Go Again, and it has +2 when you need it to have +2. The card is extremely versatile, and for a deck like Kayo that can suffer from not having enough Go Again, E-Strike is the glue that lets you convert a 4-card hand to offense when you have tempo. Outside of that, it blocks 3, which can be very strong. It can be a 2-card 7, which situationally is really good. The only thing that we're really very rarely doing with E-Strike is drawing a card. If you have the agility, E-Strike, draw a card, Go Again, lets you fix your hand and maybe filter some blues out to find some gas. But if you don't have the agility, I'm very rarely drawing with E-Strike because I don't want to put any of my blues in my arsenal. So those are the reds. Outside of our contentious picks like Runner, E-Strike, Cast Bones, we have Pulping and Wild Ride that are 2 for 6 with Go Again and Make a Might. We have Pack Hunt and Command and Conquer, which are 2 for 6s that offer some disruptive power. We have Bare Fangs and Swing Big, which are 2 for 8s. Bare Fangs even makes you a Might based on Kayo's ability. And outside of very specific matchups, we are never boarding out really any of these cards. They're all just very strong. Very rarely do we want to diminish the count of reds in our deck. Moving on to our yellows in the main deck. Outside of Agile Windup, I don't think any of these are contentious. Send Packing is another card that people started very high on and have since come down on, simply because it costs 3. With our normal turn cycle, or our ideal turn cycle of 2 for 6 Go Again, 2 for Mandible Claw, 2 for 6, Send Packing costing 3 really screws that up. If you have your Fiandal Spring Tunic to cover the additional resource cost of Send Packing, it can be very strong. But outside of that, the card can be clunky. With the amount of blocking that a lot of the top decks in the meta can do, Send Packing very rarely forces Guardian or Warrior to do things that they don't already want to do. Both of those decks actively want to block. Prism, another powerful, very well represented deck. Arsenal's a lot of instants, so they can respond to the Send Packing effect by playing their Tome of Divinity or their Aura from their arsenal to diminish a lot of the threat of Send Packing. I think Send Packing is a card that KO players are starting to reevaluate. Some are cutting from their deck. I think it's still strong enough to make the main 60, but I am boarding it out against Warrior specifically because they really don't mind blocking this and they can do it very well. And if you are not threatening the on-hit, then Send Packing is just a 3 for 6, and you would rather play a 2 for 6. Agile Windup is a card that certain players are not running 3 of. I personally think that is wild. 3 for 6 is, again, not a great rate. We just talked about Send Packing. Unlike Send Packing, Agile Windup does not have any sort of on-hit effect. It only blocks 2. But the ability to discard it to create an agility token is so strong because KO gets so much power from having agility. If you have your Fiandal Spring Tunic available, then having an agility lets you pitch a blue to play a 2 for 6. That 2 for 6 gets Go Again. You then use your Fiandal Spring Tunic to generate a 4th resource, and you get to attack with Mandible Claw. That either lets you arsenal another card in your hand, or you just did a 2-card 9, which was really, really good. And sometimes the 2-card 9 is Command and Conquer, and that had some disruptive effect. Sometimes it's a Bear Fangs, and instead you did a 2-card 12. So I think having 6 of Agile Windup is really good. I have experimented with 8 of Agile Windup and played some reds. I might go back to testing that. It was really strong when Dromite was part of the meta, but of course Dromite has now LL'd. The other 6 yellows in our deck are Beast Within and Bloodrush Bellow. I don't think you will ever cut either of these cards. Bloodrush Bellow is the reason we play Brute, as it is so incredibly strong. If you are able to put the KO turn of 2 for 6 Claw, 2 for 6 together, your Bloodrush Bellow became a 1 for 6, and depending on what your 2 for 6s were, you may have also had some disruption in there. Bloodrush Bellow makes you a Might. Bloodrush Bellow combines very well with Beast Within. Beast Within combines very well with Pulping and with Wild Ride, with Bear Fangs when you have agility. The ability to put a card into your hand, not even draw a card, but put a card into your hand is extremely powerful, especially when playing against Balance of Justice. The fact that you're Pulping or Wild Ride combined with Beast Within is only drawing you 1 card, not 2, is really good. If you have a hand with Beast Within, Bloodrush Bellow, a blue, and any other card, generally you want to find a way to get rid of that other card before you play Bloodrush, because you want Bloodrush to be guaranteed to discard Beast Within. They are 2 very strong cards paired with each other and the rest of our deck, and they really belong in every KO deck. They will never come out. Talking about our blues, I think 21 is a great number. I've played with 18 and found that it worked, but I was often drawing too many all red hands that really took away my ability to keep tempo. I've played with 24 blues and found that I was drawing too many 3 or 4 blue hands. So for me, 21 is that Goldilocks perfect number. As far as which blues I'm playing, I believe that 4 of these are strictly necessary at this time. Those 4 being Assault and Battery, Wrecker Romp, Mighty Windup, and I would even call Smash Instinct necessary. Agile Windup, Assault and Battery, Mighty Windup, Wrecker Romp. The reason these are mandatory is that Assault and Battery and Agile Windup will both make you Agility, which again, very strong for KO. KO with Agility is much better than KO without Agility. Wrecker Romp is a popper, important when Prism is a strong deck in the meta, really when any illusionist is present in the meta. Wrecker Romp being able to trigger Phantasm is extremely strong. It also combines with Apex Bonebreaker and is the only blue we can play that pairs with Apex Bonebreaker. And Mighty Windup I would call mandatory because of its synergy with Mandible Claw. If you attack with a Mandible Claw that does not have Go Again and discard a Windup in your, really anywhere in that chain link, Mandible Claw gets Go Again because it will see you discard a card with 6 or more power. So the trick of pitch a blue, attack with Mandible Claw, discard a Windup, use your Tunic, attack with a 2 for 6 is really, really good. It's another really strong 3-card hand, and you are making 2 Might tokens based on Mighty Windup's effect combined with KO's effect. So Mighty Windup blocks 2. That is a knock against the card, but I think it being a Windup, having its synergy with Mandible Claw and with Massacre, is really strong and means that you are playing it at all times. Outside of that, we have 3 slots for blues. I am playing Pat Call, Riled Up, and Smash Instinct. Smash Instinct, I think, is the best of these 3. The Intimidate can be very relevant at the end of a game, and when you combine it with an Agility, starting your turn with taking a defensive option away from your opponent can let you set up a late chain 2 for 6 that wins the game, or at least deals significant damage. But Pat Call and Riled Up are kind of just, they're 3 for 5s. That's the knock against all of our blues, and that's why I don't like drawing off of Enlightened Strike, because all of our blues are either 3 for 5s, which are bad, or a 2 for 6 that makes us discard a card, which is also bad. But we need to keep that blue count high. So for me, Pat Call and Riled Up are just the best bad options. Riled Up can be a 3 for 6 off of a Blood Rush turn if you played a Wild Ride, or when you combine it with a Windup effect. And Pat Call can save you from draw discarding a Blood Rush Bellow or a Cast Bones when you really need your Wild Ride or your Pulping to hit. That's the main deck. We'll scroll down. We can talk about the 15 cards in my sideboard. The easiest way to think about these is as a package against certain matchups. So against Warrior, Ninja, Ranger, we have Clash of Agility in the deck, and if we are boarding in Clash of Agility, we are never boarding out Runner. If we are boarding in Massacre, then we are also boarding in Wild Ride because we want the Massacre to be on as much as possible. Humble is a bit of a standout. It will go into a deck just on its own, but we play it because it is an additional piece of disruption against certain heroes. So we can start with Clash of Agility against Ninja, Warrior, Ranger. It being able to block and make an Agility is really strong. It's a 2 for 6, so it works in our ideal turn cycle when this is the only card that we have instead of a Pack Hunt or a CNC. It is a brute attack, so it works with Blood Rush Bellow, and it is a 6 power attack that works with Apex Bonebreaker. We only want to play this against decks where we reasonably will never lose a clash. Against Warrior, who doesn't run very many attacks, if any. Unless we flip a Blood Rush Bellow or a Cast Bone, we will never lose a clash. We may tie a clash if they reveal a Command and Conquer and we reveal one of our blues, but outside of that, we will never lose a clash. Same with Ninja and with Ranger. They play more attacks than Warrior does, but those attacks have 4 power or 3 power, or in the case of Ninja, 1 power. And so unless we're flipping our Blood Rush Bellows, we will never lose a clash, which means we're getting our 3 points of defensive value, potentially an extra point of might from Bonebreaker, and we're making an agility that is going to let us push more damage on our next turn. There's some other matchups that we play Clash of Agility, such as against Prism. Again, we can reasonably expect to win those clashes. Prism is a little harder because she has 7 power heralds, 6 power heralds that can tie our blue 3 for 5s. But in that case, it is a popper. It triggers Phantasm, so it is worth putting into the deck. Humble is a utility piece against decks that care about their hero power. So the easiest one being Kayo. If you can turn off Kayo's hero power for a turn, it may not affect him at all. He may just take the 6, pitch a blue, attack with a swing big, and pass the turn. But you can also hit Kayo where he wanted to play a Blood Rush Bellow, but only has 3 for 5s in his hand. Or he attacks with a Wild Ride, and the Wild Ride discards a blue that no longer has 6 power. Humble has other uses, such as against Katsu, as it turns off his ability to tutor a card with combo. Against Bolton, you can turn off his ability to give his attacks go again. Against Prism, you turn off her ability to flip a Figment into an Angel. Against Prism, it is a popper. So Humble has a lot of utility. Knocks against the card, it blocks for 2, and it isn't a brute attack. You'll notice a lot of top KO decks are not running Humble, but I think the utility of the deck, the utility of the card just makes it an auto-include in your sideboard. Massacre is a way to end games against decks that block. Really, Guardian and Warrior are the two that you really care about. Decks that play a lot of 3 blocks and a lot of defense reactions that have good armor. Massacre being a 8 power attack with Intimidate, if you can trigger the effect, is really strong. Massacre as a 10 with Intimidate on your Blood Rush turn is an easy way to win a game against Warrior or Guardian, and especially if you have an agility. So you play your Blood Rush Bellow, you then play Massacre for 10 with Go Again and Intimidate, sets you up to really win a turn cycle and hopefully win the game. We'll talk in just a bit why I like this card more than Savage Beatdown, but whether you prefer Massacre or Beatdown, they fit that same niche as a card that lets you go tall over the top of your opponent's blocks. I run it in Prism as a popper, but I'm not expecting to get the Massacre value most of the time, nor do I think that I particularly need it against Prism. Although, if you can intimidate away a Herald and leave her with an aura, that's going to significantly impact her ability to block. Wild Ride, yellow, is in the sideboard for decks where you consistently need to go wide to go over the top of their defense and maybe don't care about blocking as much. A great example is Warrior, where for the most part they aren't presenting on hits and we don't really care about blocking their damage if it means that we can present a 3-link chain. We also play it against Guardian. Guardian is a bit hit or miss as far as whether we care about their on hit or not, but we are just trying to go wide enough that they can't block all of our damage. Wild Ride and Pulping work very well with Blood Rush Bellow to supplement turns when you don't have agility. So instead of sending Mandible Claw for 5 and something like Pack Hunt for 8, you get to use a 5-card hand to send up a Wild Ride and then a Mandible Claw and then a Pack Hunt. They are turn extenders, which are very good against heroes that block well. So Wild Ride is part of that anti-warrior, anti-guardian package. As far as our equipment in the sideboard, we have Gambler's Gloves for Prism. I personally don't think we need gloves to win against the average Prism. I think Kayo was very favored in the average Prism game. This is here for the high roll Prism games. This is here for when your 5-card Prism uses Halo of Illumination to put a Herald into the Soul, to tutor out Figment of Erudition, then plays Tome of Divinity to draw 3 cards, and flips their Herald, and plays a Genesis, and plays an Arclight Sentinel, and does this massive turn cycle that won't happen in 9 out of 10 Prism games, but now you need to roll Scab Skins in order to clear the ALS and then the Genesis, or the ALS and the Soraya. A lot of Prisms are playing Gambler's Gloves against Kayo to stop us when we roll for the Scabs. So playing our own Gambler's Gloves is going to let us re-roll their re-roll and just gives us more opportunity to get the 4, 5, or 6 that we need to clear a board. I personally don't have enough experience with this to know whether or not we need it, but the card that was in this deck previously was it was a flex slot, so I'm fine to play with Gambler's Gloves. And with Prism on the up and up after Dromai leaving CC, it's not a bad idea to have more insurance against her. Nullrune Gloves, Skullhorn, and Spellfray Leggings are really all here for Kano specifically. You will get value out of Nullrune Gloves against Runeblade, especially with OTK Viscerai on the rise as a way to counter Guardian. Being able to pitch your hand into Nullrune to stop a significant number of rune chants is very helpful, but for the most part, these 3 pieces of equipment are all here for Kano. And by having AB3 and Spell Void 1, combined with all of the blues and yellows in our deck, we are very favored into Kano. We can definitely block a lot of his Aether Wildfire Blazing Aether combo turn. We have the ability to stuff Aether Spindle. We can convert extra resources into Arcane Barrier on turns where we are pressuring Kano and he's trying to find some damage to chip us down. There are a lot of slots to devote to one hero, but Kano is very popular right now, and turning that matchup into one that is very favored, I think, is worth the 3 sideboard slots. Spellfray Leggings is a recent addition to the deck for me. Some KOs will tell you to run Scab Skins against Kano, as it is a way to generate action points when they try to pitch stack against you. But I think that Spellfray Leggings is such a boost against traditional Kano that it is worth including, and it's worth running really all the time. So that is the 80 as I have been playing it. I think it's very strong, very consistent. I do want to talk about cards that other KOs are playing and why I am not playing them. And a lot of this is going to be either because I am playing something else already, or the hero that this card is meant to counter is not a part of my meta. So, case in point, we have No Fear and Smashing Performance. No Fear is a solid pick against Azalea. You can play it against Guardian, as it prevents the discard effect from a pummel or a crippling crush if you No Fear to banish your entire hand. It can be okay against Assassin. The thing to know with Assassin is if they are playing Flick Knives, then they attack you with a Shakedown, you react with No Fear and banish your hand. Assassin can react to the No Fear with a Flick Knives, throw a dagger at you, take away all of your damage prevention, and then hit you for 6 with a Shakedown. But the big reason to play No Fear is against Azalea, as it, 1, is a way to prevent damage around Dominate, and 2 is counterplay to both Codex of Frailty and Judge, Jury, Executioner. I think it is strong against Azalea. My local scene has no Azaleas. The 39-player ProQuest I played in 2 weeks ago had 2 azaleas in it. So my evaluation of the need for this card may change. Battle-hardened San Francisco had 10 azaleas out of 100 players, and was tied for the top representation at 10% with Prism. Some of my local players, we now have a local azalea to join the second azalea. We have 2 local azaleas now, where previously we had none. So the need for No Fear may go up for me. I may need to find space for this card, but at present, I don't need No Fear to win games. The same goes for Smashing Performance. I don't have local mech players. So if I had a local Dash or a local Max, and I thought I would be seeing them at top tables, I would be more inclined to play Smashing Performance. We have a Dash player in the NorCal scene that is consistently making top 8s, or at least the cut to top 8, bubbling out. But that's 1 player out of 8 at a top table. So if I'm comparing Smashing Performance to something like a Humble, which hits more heroes and more of the heroes that I'm expecting to play against, I am going to pick the counterplay to the hero that I'm concerned about. And in this case, I am not concerned about running into an Azalea, and I'm not concerned about running into a Dash. So I'm not playing No Fear or Smashing Performance. The same goes for Amnesia, which is not in this list. If I had local Katsus that I was concerned about seeing on my way to top 8, or if I thought my top 8 would be primarily Katsu, 2 out of 8 Katsu, or 3 out of 8 Katsu, then I would play Amnesia instead of Humble. But for me, in my local meta, Humble is more valuable and more impactful than a No Fear or a Smashing Performance or an Amnesia. So for me, Humble is kind of that flex slot, the silver bullet for what I am most afraid of. And in my case, I am not most afraid of Azalea or Dash. Savage Beatdown and Massacre both share that same slot as late game way to go over the top. Why do I prefer Massacre to Savage Beatdown? The first is that Massacre is playable off of 3 cards where Savage Beatdown needs 4. Savage Beatdown needs itself, it needs a blue to pay for it, it needs an additional card to discard, and it needs you to have already discarded a card. So you need 4 cards to play Savage Beatdown. Massacre needs the card itself, a blue to pay for it, and an additional card that has been discarded. So in either case, let's assume we're talking about a blue, a wind-up, and the card itself. That is a 3-card, let's call it 10. 3-card 10 with Massacre. That is a 3-card nothing with Savage Beatdown. Savage Beatdown is a 4-card 13 between the 12 damage beatdown and the 1 might that you make. Massacre, let's say you're throwing an extra blue into that hand to attack with a Mandible Claw. It is a 4-card 12. So 1 point less, but much more flexible, and you are taking away defensive options with the Massacre. Additionally, just putting the card in Arsenal, again, Savage Beatdown says, to get this card out of your arsenal, you need 3 other cards, because you need a 4-card hand to put Beatdown together. Massacre in your arsenal does not have a requirement to have discarded a card. So in the absolute worst case scenario, Massacre is just in your arsenal and you want to clear your arsenal to put something else in there, it's just a 3 for 6. It's a bad card if you aren't getting the Intimidate trigger, but it's still playable. Savage Beatdown is not playable as just a 3 for 6. You need 2 extra cards to go with it. So I think it is very inflexible, and I think it pairs a lot less well with Bloodrush Bellow, which is why I am playing Massacre and not Beatdown. Savage Feast, probably the most contentious pick for a card that I am not playing that maybe I should be. The reason is Savage Feast is the best card in our deck when we have agility. You pitch a blue, you attack with Savage Feast, you discard a card, you draw a new card, which you can either play or arsenal, but you have 2 floating resources that let you attack with the card you drew, or at least Mandible Claw. So Savage Feast is essentially a 2-card 10, and you get an arsenal. It is the worst card in our deck when we don't have agility, because when we don't have agility, this is a 3-card 7. Has the same problem that Savage Beatdown has. This is not playable with a 2-card hand. It is only playable with a minimum of 3 cards because you need to discard something. And if you don't have that agility or an extra action point from your Scab Skins, then you are using 3 cards to attack for 6, make a might, and draw a random card for your arsenal, and maybe that random card is just a blue. Maybe it's a bad blue that now either you take an intellect penalty because you aren't arsenaling, or you are arsenaling this bad card. And while Savage Feast is the best card in our deck with agility, all of our other cards are also good with agility. Command and Conquer is great with agility. Bare Fangs is great with agility. Cast Bones is great when you get to lead with something that has agility. Runner makes an agility if it has Go Again. Swing Big is just a 2 for 8 with Go Again. So cutting Savage Feast lowers our ceiling because we don't have this strong 3-card play, but it raises our floor because we are cutting a card that is usually very bad when we don't have agility. Clash of Agility Yellow is a good option for dealing with Warrior and Ranger. My problem with the card is that it does not turn on Apex Bonebreaker. Personally, I think there are better cards if we want to deal with Warrior or Ranger that are 6 power attacks. At the very least, I would play Red Clash of Might before I play Clash of Agility, and Clash of Might is not even in my deck. So I think this is just not good enough to make the cut when we are considering countering the heroes that we would want to be blocking. We have other options for 3-block brute attacks that cost 2. Reckless Swing is a card that a lot of Kayos swear by. I personally have found this card to be too clunky. It is a miss for our Cast Bones. If you pitch it early, there is a good chance that you will not see it by the time you need it. For slower decks like Warrior or Guardian, yes, you can definitely pitch deck in such a way that you'll have your Reckless Swing for the 3rd cycle when you need it to kill your opponent. But in faster matches, if you're playing this against Katsu or even Kayo, you need it at exactly the right time. And if you see it early and pitch it, your opponent now knows that you've pitched your Reckless Swing and may not play around it. If you find it late, well, then you just never had it. And the worst case for this card is it is a miss for all of your draw discard effects. Maybe now your Pulping gets blocked or your Wild Ride doesn't have Go Again. The neat thing about Reckless Swing existing is that people will often play around it as if you had it. They will respect that they need to stay above 2 life against Brute, and that is without even knowing whether you have the card or not. So very often I will notice opponents playing to stay above 2 life and giving me the benefit of having Reckless Swing in my deck without actually needing to find space for it. But the real reason I don't have this card is just I think it is too clunky. Rarely do I see it at the right time, and more often than not, I'm seeing it when it is actively detrimental to my draw discard effects or my Cast Bones. Finally, we have Heart and Cross Trap. I am not playing this card because I think that it is always going to be worse than Fiendal Spring Tunic. Heart and Cross Trap does not block, and it is a one-time burn for 2 resources. If we look at the results for this deck on Talishar, we will see that across 1,300 matches, the average time to win is 8, and the average time to lose is 8. So if all of these KO games are going 8 turns on average, that means that Fiendal Spring Tunic is getting 2 activations, so generating the 2 resources that we get from Heart and Crosstrap, while also blocking 1. Fiendal Spring Tunic also works much, much better with our line of pitch a blue, play Pulping, use Fiendal Spring Tunic, attack with Mandible Claw. Or pitch a blue, attack with Runner, with agility, use Tunic, Mandible Claw. That 1 resource from Tunic is often much more important than having 2 resources from Heart and Crosstrap. Heart and Crosstrap can't pay for Mandible Claw, it can't pay for Blood Rush Bellow, and as I've said, it doesn't block. Where you will see a lot of Kayo players defending Heart and Crosstrap is in the Brute Mirror, when you have to worry about Scowling Fleshbag. But what I've found in my Brute Mirrors is that I am able to construct a turn, so even on my Blood Rush turns, I have enough resources with or without Spring Tunic that I can work an extra claw into the turn, or I can use Tunic to generate a second floating resource to play the 2 for 6 that is left in my hand after the Fleshbag, or I can create a 3rd resource to play the blue, and then I arsenal the 2 for 6 that got banished. I've just found in testing that Crosstrap really isn't necessary. It is never doing anything better than Tunic would do, and even in the Brute Mirror, you can create a situation where Fleshbag really isn't going to impact you because you have that Spring Tunic. So that's the 80, and these are the 16 cards that you could conceivably play that other Kayo players feel are very good that I am not playing. Looking just briefly at Armory deck Kayo, we don't have much in the way of spoilers for this, and I have already talked about these spoilers previously. I think that Savage Sash is an absolute knockout. Same with Run Roughshod. I think Strength Rules All is not going to be good enough to fit into the deck. So if I am 100% including Savage Sash and Run Roughshod, let's take just a quick look at what the cuts are. Run Roughshod will take the place of probably Pack Call, but as I said, Pack Call, Riled Up, and Smash Instinct are really like your worst blues. So to include Run Roughshod, just pick which blue you like the least, cut 3 copies of that, put in 3 copies of Run Roughshod. Run Roughshod being a 1 for 5, whose only condition to play is doing something you already were doing, makes it just such an incredible card. With a 3-card hand of Run Roughshod, another blue, and Wild Ride, you are looking at pitching a blue, playing Wild Ride for 6, making a Might, and then playing Run Roughshod. You get a 3-card 13. With 2 windups and Run Roughshod, you pitch blue for Claw, you discard your windup to make Might Agility or 2 Might, and then you play your Run Roughshod. So you get a 3-card 10. No matter what you're playing above rate, Run Roughshod is the only blue that I am never sad to put into my arsenal because it just works so well with what we're trying to do anyway. Talking about Savage Sash, at the moment I would probably cut Gambler's Gloves. Again, I don't think we need this card to beat Prism most of the time, and Savage Sash is just such an incredible piece of equipment. It blocks 2, which is extremely impactful against Warrior, against Ninja, even against other Brute. It lets you cover the hit effect of Command and Conquer by just using Bonebreaker, Sash, and Scabskin Leathers. You can block out a CNC without using cards from hand. You can block the Crush effect of Crippling Crush with 3 pieces of equipment and a card from hand and still hold onto your Fleshbag, which was not something you could do previously. You can block out the Crush effect of a Crippling Crush using only equipment, which isn't something we could do previously. Savage Sash is also going to let you go much wider on your biggest Blood Rush turns. Your best Blood Rush turns currently, outside of getting the draw effect from Beast Within could only go 3 links wide, and now you will pretty reliably be able to set up 5-card 4-link Blood Rush turns, all off the back of Savage Sash. I think this card is a 100% inclusion in any KO deck. If you are currently playing Hardened Crosstrap, I think you just easily swap the two. I could see the only matchup in which I play Fiendal Spring Tunic being Guardian, and even then, if Fatigue Guardian stays as fringe as it is now, we might just never play Tunic. We might cut the Tunic and put in Savage Sash. I think it's that good of a card, and even with Fatigue potentially being a thing, I could find reasons to use Savage Sash in KO now. The only card of this maybe that definitely goes in with Savage Sash is Savage Feast. Savage Feast being a 0 for 6 that replaces itself when you have Savage Sash effect makes Feast way too good to pass up. You will treat Feast like you would treat Blood Rush Bellow when you have Sash, as something that when you have agility, you get to put just an incredible 4-link turn together. I think Savage Feast, as of now, 2 weeks to put in, doesn't raise your floor enough to justify its ceiling, but when Savage Feast can be a 2-card 6 that replaces itself, it's going to be really, really strong, and we are going to get Feast back in, which means we may end up cutting Humble. It means we may end up cutting Pack Hunt. We may end up cutting Cast Bones. Maybe E-Strike, but Pack Hunt is probably what I'm looking at now as the cut for Savage Feast. I love Pack Hunt. I am much higher on this card than I was when I started, but we have to consider that against most of the heroes you'll play against, Pack Hunt has no text, because aggressive or sometimes even mid-range decks just don't care about blocking this card. That is the KO deck I've been playing. That is the deck that you can find in any of my videos from the last few months if you want to try this out for yourself. I like the deck a lot. I think it's really good. I think it's very consistent, and I hope that you do too. So if you liked this video, if you found it helpful, be sure to assault and batter that like button. My comments are always open if you have any questions or feedback. If there are other cards that you think I should be playing and want to know why I'm not playing them, please ask. If there are any cards that I am playing and you don't think I gave a good enough explanation for why, let me know, and I'd be happy to expand on that in the comments. If you have not already done so, please consider a YouTube subscription. It's free, it helps me out, but no matter what you do, catch me back here tomorrow demonstrating the power of this deck in the Daily Fab Gameplay series, and until then, take care.